Magi gifts. Matthew 2:10-11. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. After coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell to the ground and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So as we just stick with the Magi for one more day, at least, we see this wonderful, well-known act of the Magi. They have travelled all this way, and they come and give the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Why do they do that? So when we stick to the passage, we see a pattern here, and I hope to show you this today. A pattern of worship, a pattern of thinking, of how we come to the Lord in worship. It says at the very start of the chapter of verse 10 of chapter 2 of what we just read, they arrived. They saw the star. It's now over where Jesus lay. They know the place, they know the house, they know the location, and they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. Now that's a lot of words just to say that they were happy, okay? But they were more than that. They rejoiced exceedingly, in excess, more than they ever had done before, which is key to understand the rest of the passage. They rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. So not just rejoiced exceedingly, that's one description of what happened, but they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy, immeasurable joy. And that's just by knowing they're in the right location. That they know exactly. They've traveled all this way, not knowing where this star was going to lead them. They got to Jerusalem under the assumption that he would be there. He wasn't. They move on another 5 miles. And a 5-mile journey, when you feel you're getting closer and closer, can sometimes feel the longest miles that you've ever done. And they've arrived knowing, okay, the star is now over this house. We're here. We're exceedingly rejoicing with great joy because we're here. We know we're there. We would just walk through this threshold. We're there with Jesus, with this Messiah, with this promised King. We're there. And after coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell to the ground and worshipped him. So this is like Mary, when we covered in day 2, I think it was, that she believed and understood what was happening. And out of that faith and out of that believing, she worshipped God. She had this song in her heart and she sang it out in the presence of Elizabeth, a family member. And she praises God. And so that faith was there, that believing was there, and it's led her to worship. Here they walk in and they see Jesus. Their faith has now again been realized. They have traveled all this way in believing, in faith, however they understood faith, however they understood believing. They came and they journeyed. Their faith was shown in their action, as it often is done, and how the Bible portrays faith. They believed, and that belief, that faith, as James says, leads to action, and their action was to pack up and to journey all this way. They're now so close. They're now here. And they realize it's not just faith, it's a reality. Their hopes and their dreams have all come true by walking in and seeing the child with the mother. And they fell down and worshipped. They fell down and worshipped. And so their faith is now realized in the presence of God, in the presence of the Messiah, in the presence of the King, and they fall down and they worship him. Then they opened their treasures, keyword their treasures, and they presented him with the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So what are they giving? If they're not giving it as a care package to start Jesus' earthly life, and they're not giving it as a bribe because he's going to be a great king and wonder, what is it? Well, it's an extension or a demonstration of their great joy. But we sometimes come thinking he needs it. And if we do this, it will please him. If we do this, we might get something in return. And here, this is not the pattern of what we see. They're already joyous. They're already exceedingly rejoicing with great joy. And then they fall down and worship him for who he is and what he is. They worship him. And then they give of these gifts, but not through any desire that Jesus needs them or the King needs them. It is simply an extension or a demonstration of their joy. Why? Because of the latter part, verse 11. They opened their treasures. And these treasures consisted of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They are giving them, Jesus, the very things that they treasure, and even perhaps have given them great joy. Why would it be treasure? The Bible tells us that where our heart is, our treasures will also lie, or where our treasure is, our heart will also lie. And so here, if they treasured the gold and the frankincense and myrrh, then their heart would lie with the gold and frankincense and myrrh. But their heart, which is full of exceedingly great joy, is now with Christ, is now with this Messiah, with this King of the Jews. That's where their joy is, that's where their treasure is. And so they give out of their treasure to the King to say, we don't need this treasure anymore. We don't need these things that have brought us great joy. We don't need these things that we have held as treasure, because you are now our treasure. So they give them as an extension of their joy. We are joyous in our heart. We are now joyous in the way we're lying down and on the ground worshiping you. And now it's overflowing to, we're giving you these very things that are treasures to us because we find a treasure. Now, does that sound like any other part of Scripture? Well, Jesus, in Matthew 13, 44 to 46, those two verses gives us two examples, two parables of this very act of worship. The first, it just takes a verse to explain. Why? Because it's this simple. At least in the mind, in the process, it's very simple. In the heart, it's something different. And in 44, he tells the story of a man who walked through a field and found treasure. And it specifically says, in his joy, he went and he sold everything else that he thought was treasure. He sold and he gave up because he had found a greater treasure. He had found treasure. Now you might think I'm putting words in there about a greater treasure. Well, the very next parable, verses 45 to 46, says that there's a merchant who was seeking for pearls. And when he found one of great value, he sold all that he had. He sold all the rest. He stopped looking for pearls because he found one of great value. And he sold everything in order to claim this one. And this is the same principle. This is a principle of worship to God, to Jesus, our newborn King. We come to him and him alone with exceedingly great joy, not about what he offers, not about what he brings, but who he is. Remember, what he offers and what he brings is just so that you can be with him. We're only sinners in this lifetime, but when we are redeemed in him for all eternity, all we're going to have is him. And so they come to him with exceedingly great joy. The parable, he finds a treasure, he's got great joy. And with great joy, he goes and sells everything he has. Well, in their great joy, they gave him their treasures, where their hearts were: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And they gave it to him to say, we no longer need these. This is an extension of our act of worship. We are so joyous in you. We so treasure you. We're going to give you our treasures. We can do without these because we have found you.